Chapter 5. By 10:15 on the following morning, Amir, Charlie, Kyla and Dougie had all arrived at the lighthouse and were clustered round the kitchen table helping themselves to a plate of biscuits that Jazz had put out. They looked up as Professor Jameson put his head round the door. "Hello everyone," he said, peering at them. "Have you all come for lunch? I don't think we've got enough to go around." "It's okay, Dad," said Jazz. "We're just having a meeting." Professor Jameson knew all about meetings. He was always having them with colleagues who came to visit him. Good, he said vaguely. "Have you seen my glasses, Jazz? I can't find them anywhere." "They're in your pocket," Jazz said. "I can see them sticking out." "Goodness me, so they are," said the professor, pulling out his glasses and settling them on his nose. "Well, I'll let you get on with it," and he ambled out of the room. "Right," Jazz said firmly. "Let's go up to the lantern room. Dougie, you bring the biscuits." The lantern room was at the very top of the lighthouse tower. To get to it, the children had to go up a spiral staircase that got narrower and narrower, and then climb an iron ladder. They came up through a metal trapdoor set into the floor of the small, round room. In the old days, the lighthouse's lantern had been in this room. Originally lit by oil and later by electricity, its sparkling mirrors had turned all day and all night on a pool of silvery mercury, sending a beam of brilliant light far out to sea to warn sailors to steer clear of the rocks. The lamp, the mirrors, the mercury, and all the complicated old machinery had gone now. The lantern room was just a small, round, empty space, with clear glass walls on all sides. This was Jazz's special place. She had brought up
cushions so she could lie down comfortably on the hard metal floor. She kept a little stock of her favourite books here too, a photograph of her mother who had died when she was 5, and a box of her own secret treasures. You could see for miles in all directions from the lantern room. The view to the front was over the harbour and far out across the sea. To the back was the village of Stromhead and the hills behind it, and on each side the beaches and the cliffs stretched away along the coast. In the lantern room, Jazz felt like a bird looking down from high over the world below.
Amir and Kyla often came up here with her. Amir liked to sit cross-legged with his laptop on his knee, doing complicated internet searches, while Kyla drew pictures and borrowed Jazz's crayons to colour them in. And Jazz sat against one of the glass walls reading a book. None of the three usually talked much. They just liked the feeling of doing their own thing in each other's company. Jazz didn't often invite Charlie to the lantern room. He was too energetic and restless to be comfortable in a small space. He would stand at the side of the tiny room that overlooked the sea for a few minutes, squinting up at the cloud formations and critically watching the surface of the water to gauge the weather and the chances of a good catch if he took out his little boat to fish. Then he dashed back down the steep stairs, his boots clanging on the metal treads, all the way to the bottom. Only Dougie had never been in the lantern room. "You're not old enough," Kyla had always told him crushingly. She was proud of her friendship with Jazz and Amir, and didn't want Dougie muscling in. "Us older ones, we're the lighthouse crew. You have to be 10 to be one of us." Dougie was so excited at being admitted at last too.
Jazz's special place that he was unusually quiet as he followed Kyla upstairs, and his mouth opened in a large silent O when he came up into the small bright space and took in the astonishing view on all sides through the glass walls. Then he squeezed himself into the little corner between Amir and Jazz and started fiddling with his chain and padlock. There wasn't much space in the lantern room once everyone was inside. Jazz let down the trapdoor and gave each of them a cushion to sit on. For a long moment, no one said anything. "I love it up here," Amir said at last. "You feel sort of free, as if you were flying. You are lucky, Jazz." "I know. It's amazing," said Kyla. "Why don't you decorate it a bit more? I've got a really sweet garland of paper flowers. They look gorgeous strung up from the ceiling." "That's so. That's just ridiculous, growled Charlie. This is a lighthouse, Kyla, not a stupid... He stopped, looking guilty. He promised himself to be nice to everyone forevermore and never lose his temper again. I wish you wouldn't lean against the glass like that, Amir, Kyla said anxiously. What if it's not very strong and you fall right through it? It's a really...
long way down. You'd break all your bones and be cut all over with broken glass. Don't be silly, Kyla, Jas said sternly. It's quite safe up here. You've got a mind like a disaster movie. Yes, but... began Kyla, but at that point a seagull perched on the roof overhead, and the scratching of its feet distracted everyone. Dougie nudged Amir to get his attention. I wish the old lantern was still here, he whispered to Amir. I'd like to know how it worked. I'll find you a picture of one on the internet, said Amir kindly. There's loads of different kinds of lighthouses. I looked them up. Dougie beamed at him gratefully. I'm one of you now, aren't I? He said. I'm in the lighthouse crew. Jas cleared her throat loudly, calling the meeting to order. Well, she began, you know why we're here? We've got to decide what to do about Finn. We've got to, I don't know, be nicer to him or something. I know, said Amir, but you must admit that he's a bit, well, creepy.
He's got a nice face, said Kyla, a head on one side as she thought about Finn. But the way he sort of sneaks around all the time, it's a bit creepy, finished Amir. Jas frowned. Yes, but even if he is, well, creepy, we shouldn't be so horrible to him. We always have been. And yesterday we might have actually killed him, put in Kyla. Not you, Charlie said, biting his lip. It was all my fault that he fell into the sea. I was the one who chased him. Something sort of got into me. You know what I'm like when I lose my temper. Nobody said anything. Have you seen his house? Kyla said at last. It's awful, all broken down and dark. I'm glad I don't have to live there. And his horrible dad. You know what they say about him. No one said anything. They all heard the rumours. To be fair on us, said Amir, Finn does smell a bit. His clothes are really old and dirty. They're too small for him too, said Dougie, whose voice was getting louder as his confidence rose. That's not his fault, objected Jas. He hasn't
got anyone to look after him. I know I was out of order chasing him, said Charlie, but you've got to admit, he's weird. There's something about him. Something different. But we still shouldn't be mean to him, said Jas. I mean, everyone's weird if you think about it. I'm not, said Dougie indignantly. Yes, you are, said Charlie. You're 8. 8's not weird. It is when you're 11, said Jas. Anyway, look at me. My mum was African. People round here think that's really odd. And I'm Pakistani, said Amir. You're right, Jas, but I've got a horrible temper, said Charlie. That's bad weird, not just weird. I don't think I'm weird at all, said Kyla, although she kept a careful eye on Jas as she spoke. Everyone looked at her. Kyla bit her lip, pretending not to be anxious. You know what? Jas said, laughing. I don't think you are. Kyla looked sideways, examining her reflection in the glass wall beside her. Then she turned back, satisfied, before a horrible idea hit her. But if I'm the only one who's not weird, doesn't...
That made me, well, weird, she said. Never mind about you, Charlie burst out impatiently. I know what I've got to do. I've got to go and find Finn and say sorry. It's not just you, Charlie, said Amir. I felt awful when he fell into the sea. It made me realise how mean we've been to him, not letting him do stuff with us, ignoring him all the time. I've just thought of something terrible, said Kyla. We don't actually know for certain that he got out of the sea. Amir might have missed him when he went down to look. None of us actually saw him. He might have, I don't know, rolled further into the harbour, under one of those big boats. He might have got all tangled up in a propeller. He might even be chopped to bits. The others looked at her, their mouths wide open with shock. For once, Kyla's fears seemed horribly possible. "We didn't think of that, did we?" whispered Jazz. "We should have told a grown-up, raised the alarm or something." At that moment, a muffled thump came up through the floor. "What's that?" yelped Dougie.